And, Faith Baptist Church has been really generous. They've taken youth ministries very seriously here. They have for a number of years, okay, certainly as long as I've been here. We have Awana, which of course is pre-K through 12th grade on Wednesday nights. We also will have a vacation Bible school this year, I think the third week of June. Don't quote me on that, but it's in June. The church always puts one of those on for the kids. We have a youth program for middle school and high school on Sunday nights. In the summer, we try to keep one on the occasional Wednesday night in the summer. So there's a lot here for youth at Faith Baptist Church, and that's biblical. Okay, we have to bring up the next generation to fill these seats, to put more people in them. And so it's a great privilege that I have as Awana commander to work with the youth, to work with the leaders. By the way, as Awana commander, I'm just the principal. I like to do no work, by the way. I just like, plan things out. And it's the leaders that do all the work. I'm not going to make you guys stand up. Some of them have already moved back to do children's church and everything. But the leaders spend a lot of time preparing their lessons and a lot of time with the kids every Wednesday night. Those kids spend an hour and a half in worship in the back of the education building every Wednesday night. And they spend time in like a group Bible study, a private Bible study. They spend time memorizing verses of the Bible. And at the end of the night, we even sing a few songs together, to sing a few songs to God before we all go to bed and go home and go to bed, right? But all of that time that the leaders and the kids spend, that's a sacrifice. And we should look at that as no different than a sacrifice that you would see even in the Old Testament. Okay? Time is a very valuable commodity for us. That's what I'm going to talk about today a little bit, is time. And each and every one of you leaders and kids that give that time to God, that's a serious deal. And I believe that God takes that seriously. I believe He will reward you in your life and reward you in heaven for that sacrifice of time. And so, if no one else tells you today, thank you all, leaders and kids, for coming every Wednesday. And thank you, church, for supporting this program. Like I said, we're going to talk about time a little bit. I'm going to start in Luke chapter 10 and verse 38. This is a very popular or well-read section of the Bible. It's where we're going to start today. And as you're turning there, this is the story of Jesus. Jesus travels to the town of Bethany, I believe, and He's going to stop and He's going to visit some friends. Jesus had friends. He had friends that were worshipers and followers. He had worshipers and followers that you may not think of as being His friends. But here He's going to visit a couple of friends, what you and I might consider friends. Okay? So in Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 38, we're going to read through verse 42. It says, "Now it came to pass, as they went, that He entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received Him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard His word. But Martha was encumbered about much serving, and came to Him and said, Lord, dost Thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her, therefore, that she help me." So let's pause here for a minute. Martha and Mary, all we really know right now is they know Jesus personally. Okay? We can infer that they see Jesus either as a prophet or a rabbi. They've undoubtedly heard of His miracles. They may have seen Him firsthand. I don't know from this right now if Mary and Martha really understand that He's the Son of God, He's God in the flesh or not. But they know He's an important person, right? And each of them are trying to treat Him like an important person right now. If we continue in verse 41, "And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." You see, Mary was focused on Jesus and on what Jesus was saying, where Martha was preoccupied with all the distractions in the house. She had prepared a meal. I'm sure Mary helped with the meal up front. And Martha was cleaning off the table. You can imagine what she was doing, tidying up around the house, making sure things were right. She was doing all the work that we all experience whenever we have like Thanksgiving or something like that. All that work back and forth, and was losing sight of the fact that Jesus was there, and it was an opportunity for you to sit down and talk with Jesus. She was letting all the distractions get in the way. And we don't know what Martha's response was after this. I kind of wish it told me. She really had two choices, right? Okay, and I'm going to put myself in these two choices. The first choice, the one that I hope I would make if Jesus showed up at my house for dinner, okay, is I would stop what I was doing, sit down on the couch with Jesus, and listen to what he had to say, okay? But how many of us would go the second round? I can see me doing this, storming into the kitchen, throwing the dish towel down on the stove, throwing some dishes into the sink and going, that Jesus doesn't care at all what I've done for him. Does he not know that I mopped the floors and vacuumed before he came over? There's a fresh Febreze thing over in the wax melter, and there's some candles lit, and I made a pie, and that deadbeat sister of mine's in there just sitting there doing nothing. Okay? I have a sister. She's not a deadbeat, but I would say that about her at that point in time. How many of us would respond that way? Just be completely distracted from the point, miss the entire message. It's those distractions that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to use myself as another example. So, Pastor Scott told me, I don't know, month and a half ago, that I was going to be speaking today. We'd always planned to have a Awana Sunday on this day. And normally I don't come up here and speak on Sunday mornings. But Pastor was going to be in the Philippines. And so he told me ahead of time, and I'm a bad procrastinator, but I'd actually come up with 3 or 4 topics in those weeks. Like last week I had 3 or 4 ideas. I hadn't really honed them out, picked which one it was or anything. And then I did start procrastinating. And so yesterday, I was trying to carve some time out of my day to take those 3 or 4, had some work on them, and just get them ready for a sermon, right? And instead, what I found myself doing, I couldn't find a quiet spot in the house. I couldn't calm down and not think about work and other things. I couldn't stop multitasking long enough to hear God's Word, to pay attention. And so I actually wrote down what I was doing. I was trying to load the dryer and then put new clothes into the washer. I was trying to start the dishwasher, pick up a couple of things around the dining room, check on the girls, see if they were doing their chores or not, and then check on Nikki because she was working on the church directory photos, and I wanted to see how those looked. I was doing all those things at the same time I was trying to think about which of these 3 or 4 topics am I really going to talk about in church today. And, of course, no success, right? What happened instead was part of a memory verse came into my mind. An Awana memory verse, okay? Vanessa, would you please read us Psalms 46:10? Thank you, Vanessa. Psalms 46:10, the part that stuck in my head was, "Be still and know that I am God." I was not doing that. And then I had a topic to talk about today. And so, carved out a little time and looked at that. And if you look at the examples in the Bible, how many times great things happen in the Bible and it's just God and one person. Moses was alone in the wilderness with a bush that had fire but not on fire in God's Word, right? God talking to him. You had we had the song about the well. When Jesus stopped and talked to the woman at the well, there was not a great crowd there. There was Jesus and the woman at the well. Okay? You can look over and over again in the Bible. God talks to those people that stop and take time for God. That's how He works in our lives. That's how He wants us to be. Your life is probably a lot like mine. We move along at like supersonic speeds, okay? We're always like Top Gun. We're always, going as fast as we can one place to another. And when we do that, we lose a lot. I find that every year, it seems like I have more responsibilities at work. The girls have more activities. They take longer to do. Nikki's busier with things. And, the result in the house is I see less and less of my wife, less and less of my kids. I don't see my parents like I used to. I don't see my sisters like I used to. And it's harder and harder for me to prepare for Sunday school. You know, a lot of times I'm down to, how many Sunday school teachers do the Sunday morning preparation for Sundays? Be honest, we're in church. I got my hand up. Okay? It gets harder and harder to take time for God and to do those things that really matter. It even becomes harder and harder to take time for prayer. And what did the Apostle Paul write about prayer? We should do it continuously, right? Without ceasing, all the time. And when I look at this trend in my life, and it's a trend I see in other people's lives as well, it's pretty obvious to me whose agenda that is. The world pushes us to always do bigger and better things, to keep up with the Joneses, right? And what happens with that is the Christian is always challenged to keep up and to keep putting God on the back burner. When I was doing some research on this, I had a good quote about Satan. It says, Satan is the prince of darkness and the duke of distraction. Okay? There's nothing that he wants better than to keep the Christian in the rat race. Because when we're in the rat race, we can't take time to listen to a Christian song like that song with the well. That was wonderful, by the way, ladies. Thank you. We can't take time to talk to another Christian or to a non-believer about Christ. He keeps our eyes on the clock, because if our eyes are on the clock, we can only look at one thing at a time. We can't take time to look at God. And all those distractions add up for us. And that's the world working against us. And the Bible's very clear how we're supposed to behave on the world. Romans 12:2, if you want to turn there. Romans 12, verse 2. I'm asking Eli. Eli, would you read us Romans 12, verse 2? Okay, and be not conformed to this world. That word conformed, okay, that doesn't just mean don't be like. It means don't be shaped like, don't be attached to, kind of wrapped around. Think about aluminum foil, okay? You have a chicken leg, you take aluminum foil, now the chicken leg looks like aluminum foil. That's what the Bible is warning us to do, okay? And the Bible is telling us to avoid that attraction of the world that gets us to look like it instead of looking like God. You know, God made us for a purpose. Who in here knows why God made us, what God made us for? To serve Him, to worship Him. And in the Garden of Eden, it was God, Adam and Eve. Now there was a garden, there was all creation around them. But Adam and Eve were there to commune with God. Not to commune with God and answer their email, right? Not to do other things. That was the purpose that we were set up for. I looked up some things. I ended up on, of all things, Psychology Today. Okay? I ended up in Psychology Today, and they had a survey they took last year. They gave, I think it was 1,000 Americans 30-day journals, and they kept a diary. Okay? And they kept track of the activities, and 3 activities stood out to me. The first one was lawn care. Now, it snowed yesterday. You didn't mow the lawn. You didn't mow the pastor's lawn, right? That's right, because it's not Thursday. That happens on Wednesday, right? I get it. That's okay. But it snowed this weekend. I didn't mow the lawn. But the average American spends 12 minutes per day in lawn care. Okay? Mowing, trimming the bushes, planting flowers, stuff like that. 12 minutes per day on average. The average American spends 8 minutes per day in religious and spiritual pursuits. That's not even Christian things. They just 1,000 people, right? People spend 50% more time tending the shrubs than they do tending their souls. And don't even get me started on the next one, which is 2.6 hours a day on average watching TV. Okay? We have allowed ourselves, as Christians, to get distracted from what Jesus had us do. And believe me, people will say, well, that's easy for you to say, Tim. You're looking in the Bible, and that was 2,000 more years ago, these examples you're reading about. Life wasn't as hectic back then. Things didn't happen the same way they happen now. So Jesus was the son of a carpenter, which he was probably trained at, his earthly father's trade, right? Carpentry. And half of his apostles were fishermen, right? So what that tells me about life 2,000 years ago, you had to make your own furniture and hunt and grow your own food. Now, I'm not a fisherman myself, but I've been a couple times, and it takes all day to catch like one little sunfish. And the pastor won't even eat that fish, okay? They had plenty of distractions. Plenty of distractions. We're going to do one more verse. We're going to Mark chapter 6. If you guys will turn to Mark chapter 6, we're going to read out of verse 30. And we're going to see what Jesus says about distractions by what he does. Okay? The best example of what somebody believes is what they actually do. I'll give you a little more time, but I get there this time. I'm going a little too fast. So Mark chapter 6, we'll read verses 30 to 32, I believe. Yep, 30 to 32. Jacob, would you read those for me, please?
And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into the desert place, and rest for a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into a desert place by a ship privately. Okay.
That's Jesus' response to distraction. I like this section when I was going through the different ones that I could talk about today. And by the way, there are dozens in the Bible of God directing his people, of Jesus personally taking action where they avoid distraction. But I like this one for how it starts in verse 30. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all the things, both what they had done and what they had taught. Now, who's had the experience of the kids come home from school and they want to tell you everything that happened in the day and they want to tell you right now? So I don't know how many kids you have, but multiply that by like 4 or 5, and now you've got 12 apostles. Okay? Everybody talking at once. Jesus, Jesus, I did this, I did this, I did this. I saw this. You wouldn't believe what happened. And at the same time, there are all kinds of people coming and going. And Jesus has to say, stop. Too many distractions. Okay? Too many distractions for the apostles. Too many distractions for Christ. Too many distractions for him to do the one-on-one time. And they depart to a desert place. They depart to a place because they didn't even have time or the peace and quiet. This says no leisure so much as to even to eat. Jesus said, listen, I want to hear about your day. It's important to me, your day. I want to tell you about what you should do tomorrow. I want to break bread with you. I want to spend time with you. Let's get out of here. Let's go someplace quiet, just us. That hasn't changed. God is unchanging. And Jesus feels the same way about each and every one of us. He wants to hear about our day. He wants to let us know through here, about what we should do tomorrow. He wants to spend time with us, whether we're eating, talking to our family, time in prayer. He wants that with us. That's what we're here for. And we need to set aside our time. Jesus will set aside the time. God has time. He is always listening. Are we taking the time to listen to him? Or are we taking time to talk to him? So, I wasn't going to keep you very long. I'm not going to keep you very long. Because we're all busy, right? And I know that no matter what I've said here, and it looks like most of you were awake, only the pastor is sleeping, and maybe a baby is sleeping through the service right now, okay? But you guys have all paid attention. And I know it doesn't matter, because as soon as we dismiss, everybody's going to go to the door and make a beeline and drive to Bob Evans as fast as you can. Okay? And I understand that, because, you know, you've got, somebody's got piano lessons, or there's a race on TV, or you've got chores to do at the house, or you've got family coming over, okay? Sunday's busy. Sunday's supposed to be a day we set aside for God, though, right? So just as Satan has chipped away at your time that you spend to God, I would encourage you to start today and chip some back. You don't do it all at once. Chip some back. So when you're at Bob Evans, take 30 seconds and say grace. Put your cell phone in your pocket and talk to the person that you're there with. Talk to your family members. Talk to your friends. Spend some time. Talk about, you don't talk about this sermon, but talk about something of God while you're there at the table. And then, it wouldn't be bad if the waiter comes by or you're standing in line or something, okay? When you rush off to Walmart after that, stop and tell somebody what a beautiful day it is. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a beautiful Sunday. Mention the fact that you were in church today. Take that time to chip just a little bit of time back. Come back tonight, okay? These videos we're watching, they're great. I'm learning all kinds of things about Revelation that I should have known before, didn't have a clue on. Take some time to come back tonight. Take some time during the day, tonight, to talk to God. That's most important. Take some time for prayer, okay? Your Heavenly Father wants to hear from you. It's that simple. So, that's all I really had today. Take some time for God. I wasn't going to do a song. Let's just all stand.